Hello yogis. This is an all levels Hatha class and I'm filming this class around the time of Thanksgiving. So the idea, the inspiration for this class is to kind of counteract all of the kind of body achy things that we do around the holidays, like meal prep, standing for long periods of time, sometimes in uncomfortable shoes. While I am filming this in the year 2020, so this Thanksgiving is going to feel a little bit different than maybe it usually does. I know that a lot of you are still going to be doing a meal, prepping a meal, and also just maybe the stress of the holidays can sometimes create some tension in the body. So this class, we're going to get into the neck, and we're going to get into the wrists, elbows, shoulders, spine. We're going to get some nice stability through the hips. And my suggestion is that maybe you find an intention that is centered around gratitude as you practice. And maybe it's something as simple as, I am so thankful for my breath, for my heartbeat, for this body that can do amazing things. Or maybe it's a person or a place that you are grateful for. But infuse your practice with that today. So try to move in a sense of offering gratitude to yourself, to your practice, and see if it maybe changes, maybe shifts your perspective a little bit. For this class, you will need a blanket, or if you are on a blanket or a towel. And if you are on carpet, then maybe paper plates, or sometimes like a slippery like newspaper inserts. Some of those ads are nice and slippery. You can use those. And you'll need 2 blocks. And I don't know that you'll necessarily need a strap, but if you know that you like to have one around to reach your foot in different situations, then you can have one around. I'm always surrounded by my props. So okay, and we're going to begin on our back. So lie down on your back with your feet planted on the floor, knees facing the ceiling, and bring your hands to your rib cage. And close your eyes and find a placement for your feet where you don't feel like your knees are falling in or out. You just feel like your kind of gravity can take you. And begin to deepen your breath. And notice if you're breathing just up into your hands. Try to drive your breath equally up into your hands, out to the side of the rib cage, and down into the floor, so that you're breathing 360 degrees around your rib cage. And just the act of doing this kind of breathing can really bring relief in the low back. Like if you're standing in the kitchen and you realize that your back is starting to get tight, you can either come onto the floor and breathe in this way, or sometimes just finding that breath into the back ribs, even just doing that while standing, can provide some release in the low back. Then draw your attention to the pause at the top of your inhale, where the inhale kind of takes flight and pauses before it evolves into the next exhale. And then equally send your attention to the pause at the bottom of the exhale, where the exhale kind of grounds down and has a pause before it evolves into the next inhale. And this too is a tool that you can use at any moment that you're feeling stressed out. If you just close your eyes and turn your mind to those 2 parts of the breath, the pause at the top of the inhale and the pause at the bottom of the exhale. If you just spend a few breaths doing that, it can remind us to pause. It can slow us down. It can slow our thoughts down. It can calm us, and maybe bring a little bit more ease into your experience. Now bring your hands to your hip points and just start to rock back and forth towards your tailbone, so arching your low back, and then tucking your tailbone and pressing the top of your sacrum into the floor. And go back and forth a few times. And we're going to call the tailbone 6 o'clock and the top of the sacrum 12 o'clock. So you're rocking between 12 and 6. And feel your hip points underneath your fingers and notice if you're kind of leaning into one or the other. Try to make this pure 12 to 6. You'll see where we're going with that. And then pause at center and push the left hip point down into the floor. Feel the right hip point push up into your fingers. And then do the opposite. Push the right one down. Feel the left one lift up. Maybe one is easier to do than the other. But go back and forth a few times. And we're going to call the left hip point 3 o'clock and the right one 9 o'clock. And take a look at your knees and notice if you're wagging with your knees. Try to keep your knees steady in space and rotate your pelvis around the head of the femur. And pause at center and we'll do some clocks. So tuck your tailbone and press the top of your sacrum into the floor. That's 12. Now slowly roll towards 3, so towards the left hip point, rolling through 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock, and then finding 3 o'clock. Okay, now move from 3 through 4, 5, 6. Now your tailbone is pushing into the floor, your low back is arched, and then 7, 8, 9, right hip point is down, 10, 11, 12, and you're back to the tuck. Now move through that clock a few times and watch your knees. Notice if you are pot stirring with your knees and try to keep your knees pretty still. And then also notice if there's an area of the clock that feels like it's not as filled out, like a part of the circle that is more difficult for you. And you can go back and forth through that part a few times, give it a little extra attention until you feel more skilled there, and then switch directions. And also try to keep your rib cage relatively out of it. So don't like really arch your whole spine. I want you to try and move just the pelvis. So try to keep your ribs nice and quiet. Oh, this feels so good. This is really good for the low back. All right, and then let's pause that work. Bring your arms overhead. We're going to roll through the spine a couple of times. So take a deep inhale and hold your breath at the top. Sip in more air, fill up all the way. Fill up all of the nooks and crannies of your lungs. Sip in, sip in, sip in, and hold the breath. Now keep the breath held in. Just tuck your tailbone and roll one vertebra at a time up through your spine. Really tucking the tailbone, trying to feel each vertebra press into the mat just before it lifts off. And then lift your hips nice and high at the top and exhale. Hold the breath out. Push all the extra air out. And hold the breath out. Now holding the breath out, tuck your tailbone strongly and roll one vertebra at a time back down towards the floor. What we're doing here with the breath hold as well as the spinal articulation is we are stretching the diaphragm muscle, which will in turn make our breathing feel more at ease. Take a breath for free at the bottom, and we're going to do 2 more. So deep inhale, inhale all the way, fill all the way up. Tuck your tailbone and roll up through the spine. Exhale at the top. Exhale all the air out. Hold the breath out and roll down. Take a breath for free at the bottom. So you'll notice that you really have to commit to the tuck of the tailbone on the roll down, because when you're holding your breath out and rolling down, there's an extra stretch there. So if you feel uncoordinated, if you can hold your breath that long, feel free to move back and forth across a few vertebrae that feel a little clumsy, and or pause the video and do a few more repetitions. This will be our final one for today. So inhale deeply, hold the breath in,
Sip in more air. Hold it and roll up. Exhale at the top. Push all the extra air out. Hold it out and roll down. Take a breath for free at the bottom. You kind of shake your hips back and forth a little bit. And then roll onto one side and come up to seated.